What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another knife therapy session. Today, I have something extremely special for you. But before we jump into it, I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone that tuned in to the last video. It did extremely well. If you haven't seen it, I'll try to link it at the end of the video. It's on the ProTech Malibu. I was also experimenting with some clickbait. It was a huge success. We were at 100 views a day for the first week, so just astronomical. It's so funny too if you look at the likes and dislikes, man. It's the most I've ever got on a video, and it was still unanimously well liked. So I appreciate everybody tuning in for that, and thank you so much. But today's video is going to be on the Hinderer knives XM-18, the 3-inch in the vintage series. So the vintage series, guys, is a limited run with Hinderer knives, and they only do a certain number and then it's gone. So these knives are also serialized. You can see mine is 704, so that is unique for XM-18s. The majority of them are not. So super pleased with everything I've got here. Guys, this is probably just a little inside scoop here. This is probably has a shot at being my last everyday consistent carry for a pocket knife. I mean, I can't remember the last time that I've had a consistent knife in my pocket for this long. And I've had this for like two and a half months. And I carry multiple knives on me, but I'm saying one consistent knife, I'm not sure. And this has not left my pocket. I've used it extensively. It has performed excellent. I just have nothing but praise for this particular knife. It meets everything that I am looking for in a everyday carry. And it also adds stuff that I didn't even know I wanted. For instance, this is a solid walnut scale on this knife. It's not composite, anything like that. It is a slab of walnut that's treated in bull linseed oil. And man, I've never had a knife with a real wood scale before, but when you get that in your hand, it truly feels like a purpose-built tool. Anything like a hammer, an axe, any of your common tools, like those hickory handles or those premium wood materials, really gives you a unique feel to it. So just blown away. But before we get in too far, I like to jump right in, but we got to get the stats out of the way so I don't forget. The overall length for this is coming in at 7.13 inches. It's got a blade length of 3 inches, but due to that forward chorl, it's the cutting edge is only at 2.63 inches. And I just weighed this. I didn't write down in my notes the weight, so I just went and weighed it, and it was coming in at 3.3 ounces. So a little over the ounce per inch for our ideal weight, but it's right there, man. It's money. It's really a pleasure to carry, and I know some people are going to yell at me because of the tip down carry, but I've only owned one other Hinderer that you haven't seen, but previous to this one. I've only owned one previous to this, and that was a Gen 2. This is a Gen 6. And the problem with the Gen 2 was, and it was a common problem with most of them, is they didn't flip very well. They had a weak detent. And so I am pleased to tell you that the Gen 6 is a perfection knife. They have totally and utterly fixed the weak detent problem. Whether you are flipping this thing out with the flipper tab or you're using it as a traditional knife and a thumb stud deployment, this thing rockets out perfectly. It's very, very smooth. This knife is shipping on bearings, but it also ships with Teflon and phosphor-Vron washers. And I'm sure you know, but just for the people that don't, this little symbol on the flipper tab is for the tri-way pivot system, which Rick Hinderer came up with. And that is just a universal way that you can change out the bushing at the pivot. Either it's bearings, phosphor-Vrons, or Teflon. So whatever your choice is or preference, you can adapt the knife to your needs. So if I was a military soldiers shipping over to a very sandy environment, I would definitely either put the Teflon or phosphor bronze washers in there to try to accommodate me in those type of conditions. But where I live in the States, it's not a big deal. This knife is not getting abused on a daily basis with harsh elements, so the bearings work perfectly for me. It flips extremely well. It's extremely drop shutty, and just a perfect action. Normally you see this type of action in much more expensive knives than this. It's a very hydraulic feel to it. It's just outstanding and amazing, and really hit the nail on the head with this one. So I've just been enjoying it. Carrying every day. And one thing we need to talk about is we need to talk about the blade steel. So Rick Hinderer, I watched an interview that he did with some knife distributor, and he was explaining the choice for the blade steel, and most people aren't familiar with it, but it's 01. And 01 tool steel, as he described it, was an older steel, but has a lot of great attributes when it comes to knife cutlery. So he was describing it as good blade retention, or good edge retention, good edge retention, and it had really extreme toughness, and it was compared to 3V. Now, I own several pocket knives in 3V, and I can attest that 3V is a very tough, robust blade steel that can take a lot of abuse. And so when we mean toughness, we mean that the blade is not going to chip out, the blade's not going to shear and like pretty much break apart if you're in a prying or any type of tough task you're putting it through. But 3V has pretty good edge retention. It holds an edge pretty well. Doesn't require all that much sharpening. However, on this one, I've already had to sharpen this knife twice, and I put a 20-degree angle on each side when I did that, and got it hair whittling sharp. I mean, it was screaming sharp. But that dulled very quickly, and so the edge retention on this is probably the weakest I've ever seen out of a premium pocket knife that I've ever bought from a major retailer. However, 01 also rusts. Rick didn't try to deny that whatsoever. So he was saying that he parkerized the blades just like many of the older firearms. It's got it patinas really nicely. The parkerization does an excellent job of corrosion resistance. You can probably see there on the blade, there's some slight surface rust. You see that right there, but none on the parkerization. So the bare edge, there's that little bit of surface rust, but overall it does pretty well. So just the edge retention is slightly less than what I would like. However, everything else is so overwhelmingly perfect. I put up with that. Oh man, did we talk about the tip down carry? I can't remember. Well, we're going to talk about it again if we did. Guys, I left it tip down, and it's probably the only other pocket knife that I do that with. It would be a Hinderer. And the reason being for that is that it ships like that from the factory. And Rick obviously has made the decision that that's his preference. Otherwise, it would be in a different configuration from the factory. Now, it gives you absolutely zero hot spots in the hand that way. It carries good. It buries the flipper into your pocket. So there, to quote Nick Shabazz here, there's no pocket pecker when it's in your pocket. So that's nice. And it's real smooth with the slope going into your pocket. It's just amazing. Really enjoy it. So I left it. I've been enjoying it tip down. If you've never carried a knife tip down, you probably should try it. And speaking of which, I actually have another knife right here. If I can try not to bump the camera, I just remembered that I carry another knife tip down very often, and I enjoy it. The Microtech SOCOM. So this knife is tipped down, very big knife, carries extremely well tipped down. And I guess we'll just go into size comparisons right here. You can see the difference there. It is a smaller knife. The SOCOM is a full-size knife. And then next I got a Spyderco Spidey Chef. So there is some options for you. I got some laying on the table here. I also have a new knife that many of you will probably be excited to see, and you can expect a video on that coming soon. This is the Benchmade 940. We'll flip around so you can see the show side. So the 940 is a very, very common carry for a lot of people, and it's very similar in size. It's slightly smaller. The overall carry, I would say, is very similar though. This is the Giant Mouse Sonoma. Great knife. And lastly, before the new knife, this is the TRM Atom. Just a great knife as well. And here it is. You ready? Should we get it? Let's take everything off the table for this. I'm excited. I got this in yesterday. Put this up here. It's slightly bigger. You ready? I'm gonna put it up to the camera. It makes a heck of a thwack. A 3.5 inch XM-18 blackout DLC. Man, this thing is awesome, guys. I'm super pumped about this. You know how I love orange. It's definitely going to be a theme to the channel. And yeah, smoking. All the XM-18s Gen 6s have just been outstanding, and I'm just, you can call me a Hinderer herd fan. I'm all in with Hinderer in 2020. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you so much for the support. And if you're new here, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Help us out. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So thank you so much again. And guys, stay safe. And I'll see you soon. Peace.